27th, 2 p.m. legislative session of the Board of County Commissioners. Please let the record reflect that 5 commissioners are present. We have in the hearing room, so we have Commissioner Jordan, Waldrop, French, and Kearns, and we're joined virtually by Commissioner Cuney. So I will ask all those in attendance, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and then just also for the record, we did not receive any written comment for any of our legislative items on the agenda, and then we will be taking item 5C separately, and then we do have one public hearing item today. Okay, and then before we move to open public forum, because Commissioner French, you stated you had something you wanted to state for the record?
Yeah, so I know that we've talked about creating a task force to deal with PFAS, and so over the last week I've been reaching out to various members. I still have a lot of folks to still reach out to, but I have reached out to Chad Pritchard, Medical Lake, Airway Heights, and a number of others, and we'll be reaching out to Department of Ecology to see if they would also be joining us. So over the next, hopefully next week or so, I'll be have the opportunity to reach out to everybody that might have an interest, including the West Plains Water Coalition, and then I'll bring that list of people that are and are not interested in participating back to the board in a board discussion and stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a brief update about that because I know that folks are interested in us moving forward with that, and just want to let you know that we are moving forward and getting a good response from most folks. Not everybody, but getting at least a response. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have 6 individuals signed up for open public forum, so we're going to just extend an extra little bit of time. So each individual will get 3 minutes. We will start with Craig Volesing. Craig, I know you know the drill. Name and address, and 3 minutes.
Oh, yes, it's Craig Volesing. I'm a resident of the West Plains on 520 North Grove Road. So, good afternoon. Commissioner French has kind of precluded a couple of things that I had prepared because based on our research so far, we really hadn't seen any evidence of any moves or any actual formal invitations. He may have inquired or mentioned this to a couple of people, like Chad, who told me, yes, he mentioned something that I'd be getting some kind of invitation, but that was basically it. So I will kind of go with what I had prepared based on what my research had yielded as of this morning. So last week I began by thanking you for any individual or collective work you have done on forming PFAS task force. You will recall your briefing meeting the previous week when you agreed to take steps to form such a task force. Commissioner Kearns pointed to the Department of Ecology's webpage on his computer and said something to the effect of, let's get these folks in here. That was good. Discussion included what other entities should be invited. Spokane County's Department of Water Resources was mentioned. Commissioner French answered, we don't need them. When asked about the West Plains Water Coalition, Commissioner French answered, might as well, they show up anyway. Nevertheless, we came away from that meeting pleased that you folks had indicated that you were finally, as a board, engaged in this West Plains water pollution crisis. But now it seems I should reserve those opening words of appreciation. To date, there is no real evidence that you have made any moves to assemble a PFAS task force. One source tells me that Commissioner Cooney does not want any further time spent or action taken on this problem until after the election. If that's true, we are left wondering how long after the election. Postponing action on this matter does not avoid political ramifications. Rather, pursuing solutions for the problem and help for the affected citizens, regardless of election season, would be a proper and civic-minded, non-political move. Regrettably, as a board, you're at the center of this problem and the controversies that have been generated. Please respond accordingly, and please move forward without further delay. 7 years and counting.
Next up is Barry Barfield.
State my address?
Name and address, if you would.
Sure, Barry Barfield, 223 East Rockwood Boulevard, number 5, Spokane, 99202. I'm just here to personally invite you to join me on an urban plunge on the night of November 4th, following the city council meeting. All the commissioners here are invited, the city council members, and the mayor. And if you would like to, I can try to help you understand better this situation involving homelessness in our area. Any questions? If not, I'm done. No, I'm done.
Short, sweet, and to the point. Nicely done. Okay, next, Julia McHugh.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. Greetings, electeds. Since contamination was recognized in the Spokane Valley Raton Prairie Aquifer in the late 70s, the first 20-year initiative to protect the sole source of drinking water was passed by voters in 1985 and renewed in 2005 for another 20 years. As you know, this initiative and source of funding to protect the Spokane Valley Aquifer expires at the end of 2025. Some have known since 2017 that the West Plains Aquifer, separate and geologically distinct from the Spokane Valley Aquifer, is also significantly contaminated. Page 2 that you have in front of you, I hope, displays the 4,000 plus private wells. It looks a little bit like this. They're the wells outside of the Fairchild Air Force Base PFAS study boundary tells us that 60% of those wells tested this spring by the EPA ecology effort are contaminated, significantly contaminated. It is time for this elected body to team up with the City of Spokane, the West Plains cities of Airway Heights, Medical Lake, Cheney, and Four Lakes, and step up to the initiative plate again. All municipalities I've just mentioned have significant assets and, I might say, and remind you, significant liabilities on the West Plains, which enable many thousands of citizens and business owners to live, work, recreate, and travel. Reference the West Plains Table of Contributions and Impacts, which you received 2 weeks ago from me, that tells you what the West Plains does offer to this entire region. And I want you to keep that in mind. When you want to separate us, we need to join up. We need to marshal our forces and begin the nasty, hard work and long-term work of fixing the problem on the West Plains. It's not a problem, it is a massive health, safety, and welfare crisis. On page 3, you have a preliminary list of benefits to be realized by the West Plains residents and all regional citizens through funding resulting from a successful 2025 ballot initiative. We constituents ask this board for a written response to this request to undertake a ballot initiative in 2025 to begin to address the West Plains Aquifer System contamination. It will take all of us. Do you have any questions? Is there any murkiness about our distress and the concerns about our health, safety, and welfare, which you've been elected to protect? And we also are concerned about our property values. We have been promised a report from the assessor, Tom Konis. That's on hold. We've been promised a response to Mr. French's delay in alerting us about PFAS. We need more from you, and I'm asking specifically for a written response. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mary Benham.
Mary Benham, West Plains resident, 99224. 2017 PFAS was detected at Fairchild and at the Spokane Airport, although it was not disclosed by the Spokane Airport as it should have been. In July of 2019, the Secretary of Defense created a task force to ensure a coordinated approach on Department of Defense efforts to address PFAS. The DoD PFAS task force is focused on 5 goals: mitigating and eliminating the use of PFAS, fulfilling cleanup responsibilities related to PFAS, understanding the impacts on human health, expanding public outreach, and 5, supporting PFAS research. Installation commanders are required to report local outreach efforts to ensure consistent and appropriate engagement with communities surrounding DoD installations and to gather community questions and concerns. As you know, Fairchild has a Restoration Advisory Board, RAB, with at least 15 members. It is now time to establish a similar coordinated approach with the Spokane County PFAS Task Force composed of Spokane, Airway Heights, Cheney, Medical Lake, the 5 county commissioners, Fairchild, the Spokane and Kalispell tribes, the West Plains community, and technical water personnel. The goals of the Spokane County PFAS Task Force are yet to be established. However, they should be similar to the first 4 DoD task force goals: mitigation, responsibility, health impacts, and public outreach. Please understand the severity and long-term impacts of our crisis. We expect to see formal announcement of the Spokane County PFAS Task Force within the next 2 months, perhaps sooner, and quickly also are asking for the Emerging Contaminants Grant update. We sent an email but have not gotten a response because the EC grant does include wording to address well owners. So we're hoping to hear more on the grants that have been hopefully worked on or applied for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Laura Akerman.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Laura Akerman, West Plains, 99224. First, I want to say that I completely agree with the comments Professor Matt Anderson made last week at the BOCC meeting. Having lived on the West Plains for 26 years and just to the west of all the 195 development, I have seen and experienced what Dr. Anderson has described. It's appalling, and it is not how the city has it's not just how the city has handled things. This has been an area of contention and mismanagement for years, and the county specifically, when we had 3 commissioners, has helped contribute to the whole 195 mess. Years ago, I came to this commission with the current 3 Republican commissioners and expressed concern for the development of the West Plains with no planning other than the kind that they were not doing. I took my kids and we drove up Division Street and the Sprague Avenue, took photos and wrote down addresses of vacant lots that could be used for infill. Several of those vacant lots are still there, and that was only 2 examples in the city. We all know there are still plenty of places for infill. And in 2019, retired EWU planning professor Kerry Brooks had some of his graduate students do a sub-area plan for a portion of the West Plains. I have the plan. Some of the planners at the county are aware of this, but of course, nothing happened with it. On which shelf is it sitting in the county offices? We have expert resources in this community that are not being used, and that needs to stop. Another example of this is last night at the West Plains Water Coalition's presentation on PFAS that I watched online. Dr. Bree Brinkman and Dr. Riley Mulhern were asked several questions, and in 2 of their responses, they mentioned they were not toxicologists, but tried to answer the questions. The Spokane Regional Health Department really could use a toxicologist. To my knowledge, there's no agency toxicologist in Eastern Washington. PFAS are not going away, and a toxicologist on staff will serve us in needs beyond PFAS. We need a multi-pronged task force for PFAS because there's so much at stake, and we will have to incorporate data as it is received. So it needs to start immediately. The task force needs to start, as I said again, but Dr. Pritchard's study data are due June 2025, and hopefully he'll get funding to continue that study in 2026. But we still need to have that data, or any data that's coming in now. You've heard of the saying, hurry up and wait. We're tired of that. We want a county that acts and genuinely works to solve problems with other municipalities, listens to citizens, and utilizes the expertise of others in the county. You can start by immediately forming the PFAS, and I would suggest having 2 commissioners involved with that task force, informing the task force. And I also agree with Craig's comments and Julia's comments and Mary's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And John Hancock.
I'm John Hancock. I live on Deep Creek in the West Plains. Thank you, Mr. French, for progress towards the task force. Imagine what you all know about the history of broadband service in the country. The expansion of service towards rural homes is the last mile example that I think fits our water trouble. The trunk lines of municipal water are nearby, but the extension all the way to my house is costly and it's complicated. Federal money incentivizes that last mile, but local match and interlocal action plans are always required. The Federal Clean Drinking Water Act is now 50 years old. Since 1974, it excludes private well owners and bottled water from federal protection. We're unaided on both topics. Few states have backfilled drinking water standards with their own regs and funding. That's 1 million of us unprotected in Washington. That's the EPA exclusion that we're now up against, and which prevents Al's campaign promise of clean water for everybody by next summer. The environmental justice screen, for instance, was created by the same agency to define the population need according to its own criteria, which has excluded us by statute for 50 years. EPA still uses its old definitions to fund our new forever problem. That won't work, and we get to say why. Al's team and ours have both discovered over the last few weeks that federal PFAS money is really complicated, and many communities are in line ahead of us. Major funding won't trickle down through the cracks in the bedrock of this historic dodge of care. The funding pipeline requires that we drill some big holes and lay some major trunk lines together about the money. I think every PFAS funding proposal from the county needs these 3 things. Number 1, the technical feasibility and sophistication required to pass muster with the engineers in at least 2 different state or federal agencies. Number 2, political support by our state and federal delegations. And number 3, community endorsement, without which no proposal will pass the environmental justice considerations. Regarding this last involvement by the people, I'm sorry to say that trust in the commission and the city has taken another hit, because Commissioner French alleges now that the entire airport board, and by extension the commission as a whole, was in on knowing about airport PFAS, but not saying. Thank you.
All right, that will conclude open public forum. I will look to my fellow commissioners for a motion on items 3, 4, and 5, excluding item 5C.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would make a motion to approve items 3, 4, and 5, and all the sub-items contained therein, excluding 5C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. That will bring us to item 5C, and we have a presentation from Jim Amacio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. The Board of County Commissioners was briefed this morning by Mike Volz with regard to a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding. The Memorandum of Understanding is between the Spokane County Treasurer, Spokane County, and Broadlink. As the Board of County Commissioners is aware, Broadlink is a public development authority which the Board of County Commissioners set up. And the purpose of Broadlink is to provide internet access to rural and underserved communities. In conjunction with Broadlink providing this services, they like to participate in federal grants. And in some instances, in order to participate in a federal grant, they have to provide a letter of credit and other loan information. What you have in front of you this afternoon is a memorandum of understanding among Spokane County, the Spokane County Treasurer, and Broadlink, which is an agreement to agree, if you will, on a letter of credit and potential loan agreements between Spokane County, Broadlink, and the Treasurer's Office to facilitate Broadlink participating in the BEAD program. I prepared the document which is in front of you, the MOU. I also prepared a resolution which is in front of you, board members. Unfortunately, when I prepared the resolution, I included some language which I did not need to include. I've asked Mr. Valencia to place on the overhead the language which I am deleting from that resolution because it provides some inconsistencies between the MOU and the resolution itself. So my request is that the Board of County Commissioners take this item separately, and because I've modified the resolution by eliminating some language, it will be necessary before you after you make the motion, before you vote on the motion, to take public comment on the elimination of the item number 2, which I have outlined. Does the board have any questions with regard to my request?
Does not appear so.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so no questions. Is there a motion on this item before I open it up for public comment?
Move to approve.
Second, move to approve as amended.
As amended, yeah.
Okay, second.
Okay, so I will open this up for public comment. So anybody wishing to comment on the presentation, the resolution as displayed on the screen, please come forward. Second call. We'll look, anyone online? No one online. Third and final call. We'll give a few more seconds. Seeing nobody wishing to testify, we'll close the public comment. And we have a motion. Any final comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. All right, that brings us to our public hearing item for the day. This is public hearing item number 6A. This is to consider the sale of surplus county property, Spokane County Assessor's parcel number 46354.9155 for the Spokane County Public Works Department. We have a presentation by Deborah Firkins.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am asking you to consider the sale of surplus county property, Assessor's parcel number 46354.9155. It's known as the house on Bigelow in Progress. Its current address, though, is now 5426 North Otto Lane. This property was purchased by the Road Fund with Road Fund funds for Bigelow Gulch Road. County Road Project number 2991 for $237,350 on October 10th, 2008. Bigelow Gulch Road bisected this property and two other lots that we had. The property of this house south of Bigelow Gulch Road was sold to East Valley School District. This property currently has a leak in the roof and will be sold via a quitclaim deed as is. Brent Bergquam appraised this property for $438,000 in its as-is condition with the hole in the roof. We would like to post this property on Gov Deals for auction at $338,000 for the minimum bid, and also allow the option that if it doesn't sell at this auction, that we can sell it over the counter for the minimum bid. That also includes, so the Gov Deals will charge 5% over what the bid comes in for their costs. And we'll split the closing costs with the highest bidder, and the county will pay the standard title insurance. The Public Works Department also recommends that any offer may contain the provision of a contingency for the procurement of financing, a clean title report, and a roof repair estimate. The board will now take public testimony for and against the advisability of the surplus and auction of this property. Next week, after this public hearing, the board will close the public testimony and continue this for the next week for discussion only. I mean, decision only, not discussion. Sorry. Thank you.
Any questions for Deborah? No? Okay. Well, as Deborah stated, this is a public hearing, so anybody wishing to testify on public hearing item number 6A, please come forward. Yep, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes, and then if you could fill out one of the blue slips before you leave today, we'd appreciate it.
I'm Aiden Franklin. I live at 1319 East Blackwood Lane on Spokane South Hill. And before I came here, Commissioners, I looked at the property on the county assessors. And I was starting to think about if that was like my house and I sold it to the county. And I was wondering, are the previous property owners going to be informed that their former home is going to be going back up for sale, and to see if they would like the opportunity to buy their property back again? Because
Deborah, would you like to address that?
No, they're not going to be, unless it was in the original purchase and sell agreement, whereby they retained a provision in there that they could repurchase the home, then they would be able to do that. Otherwise, everything is an auction so that everybody gets a fair chance to buy a property. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, just thinking if it was my house, I would want to know, like, hey, my old home is going up for auction, and see if I have the opportunity to place a bid. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else wishing to testify? Second call. Anybody online? Nope, no one online. Third and final call. Seeing no one wishing to testify, we'll close the public hearing. And as Deborah stated, we're going to close the public hearing portion of this. It is requested that we continue this 1 week. I will look to legal. Do we need a motion to continue it next week, or is that just something we can push it to next week?
That's a great question. Jim, do you know the answer to that?
Pardon me, Mr. Vice Chair. Yes, a motion is in order. This is a little different than we normally do. Normally, we make a decision today and then determine how to sell it. But I think Mr. Kozer recommended that we change that process in this case. We continue this for 1 week, Next week, you'll determine if it's surplus, and you'll determine how we're going to dispose of the property, and that's what Deborah alluded to during her presentation.
All right, so is there a motion to continue this 1 week until October 29th to our 2 o'clock meeting for decision purposes only?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, well, that does it for everything on our printed agenda. I will look down to CEO Simmons and our legal counsel. Anything for the good of the order today?
Nothing further from me, Commissioner.
All right. Matt, anything? Nothing further from me. Okay. Well, then that will do it. It is 2:33 and we are adjourned. And Commissioner Cuney, can we use your stamp? All right. Wonderful. We'll see you all next week.